Hello again, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Noble Father podcast. Today's a long weekend for my family, and so trying to get this one out. It's amazing the amount of resistance I've felt. Putting these out, you feel like every single week you think you'd get better, but the journey is always fresh and it's always new, and I guess that's how you know life is going well when you are growing, and it's always there's discomfort in sharing on this podcast. Um, and I when I think about how far we've come on this podcast, uh, I see a lot of growth, and also a lot of areas to improve on. Even just like the uhs and ums that I'm saying periodically, it's something that is ever. I don't think I'll ever get rid of it. I don't know if I'll ever get rid of it, and I really don't know how those people do it on major podcasts without. And maybe because I'm doing these kind of almost like monologues of sort that can be kind of difficult. And yes, I don't plan and I don't structure all my podcast episodes, and so there is that resistance and that lack of that flow sometimes getting cut off. This week I had this past week I had it's a bit of an experience. Our church had a youth night on Friday, and our leader reached out to me during the week and said, "Hey, would you be interested in sharing a message for for the youth?" And so, he gave me two different passages, and he said, "Hey, pray about it. Which one do you want to talk about?" And I chose the one that, I wanted to learn about, not one that I was familiar with. And I wanted to learn, what they say of uh, to adequately teach something, you must learn something. And so, learn about it well. And so, went into learning about, the passages of scripture that Jesus says that he is the door. And learned a lot through that experience, but also in sharing that message. It was amazing how, hey, I've done the podcast for almost 2.5 years now, and yet you'd think that I'd be able to flow very easily. And yet as I was standing up there, a lot of resistance. You structure your talk, and then you go to share about it, and then you, for whatever reason, the notes that you take down, whenever you take them down, you visualize yourself doing the talk, but the outcome of it, it plays out so different. And so, I had a scripture in there that was longer than that in the moment I was like, I'm not going to read this. I can't read this whole thing. And so I just scrapped it, and just not thinking clearly about how to structure the conversation, the message, made it flow for me, not very smoothly. And so I was just, as it was going on, I was dreading it, and I was not excited about it, and I was so nervous, and like the way that I went about it, obviously, is like I do for these episodes, is pray, and I give it to God, and I say, "Hey, Lord, use me as a mouthpiece. Like I am an imperfect human being. The fact that you're choosing me to even give this message to the youth is a big deal for me, and I'm honored and humbled, and you qualified me to do that." And so, went about doing it, and it was a challenge. It was difficult, and it was crazy because, afterwards, the discussion was intentional, and it went very well. Our group, we broke up into breakout groups, and the boys were sharing in my group, and it was very, very intimate and deep discussion for these guys. And but maybe in back of my mind I was like, oh, maybe it's just our group. And it turns out all the other groups had very, very deep and intentional discussions as well. And in hearing the feedback from the other leaders about my message, I was still kind of reeling from the whole experience, because it just unfolded so chaotically for me. And in my mind, it was just a mental struggle, and the resistance that I was feeling, and we're always most critical of ourselves, right? So that imposter syndrome in me was like firing on all cylinders. But all the leaders were just like, man, you delivered. Like it was a good message, and you came out with everything, and you really got everybody thinking. And because you shared the message the way you did, the discussions went really, really well in our group. Mind you, youth, nowadays it's not very common for them to share openly about their feelings and, talk about those things and to open up. And so something about the message really resonated with them, and they were sharing. And so even though in my head and the way I saw myself delivering that message, it seemed so chaotic, they didn't see all that. And so that really got me thinking about, this journey of, I'm very critical of myself. And yes, I might not be getting, hundreds of thousands of listens like, or millions like Joe Rogan or other podcasters out there. But that's not to say that there's no success, and that there's the message is not being, if even one person, their lives are changed, I should reconcile that is okay. I really feel like that's been a lesson for me the last couple of weeks of, when it's slow and when it's down, to really get distracted by the shiny objects in life. And there is a danger to that, is that you lose your sense of what is most important in the present. And so, we do the Thursday calls, and it's very easy to think, oh, I need to move and jump to something else and focus my attention on something else. But the reality is, God calls us to be present in being a father. God calls us to present to being a husband, to being present as, with the Thursday calls, with the Wednesday calls, and with the interactions that we have. How about the community members right now presently? And so it's been a lot of recalibration in my mind to really set my mind on the things above. And that's really from the Bible, right? Of setting your mind on things above, taking it captive and holding it obedient to Christ. Because if we don't, it's very easy for us to lose our way, get distracted, and go down the wrong road. And God never intended for that journey to unfold that way. And as human beings, it's very easy for us to all of a sudden just be like, God, why am I here now? Right? Like down the road, you're like, why am I here at this junction? And what would God's response be? He's like, well, I never told you to take that detour. My associate pastor would always tell me, like, yeah, you find yourself walking and you're walking with God, and then suddenly you're walking by yourself, and you don't even notice that God is no longer there with you. You turn back to see that God was at this mile marker, the last thing he said to you to do. And that's very much how life unfolds, right? For a lot of us, is we think that we're going down this road, and you said we were going on this journey together, and you're walking with him in step. Then suddenly you find yourself alone, is because you've started to control the things, and you started to try to control the outcome. You've become so attached to it, and you forget that Jesus was walking with you at one point, and then suddenly you're off by yourself all of a sudden again. And so to recalibrate yourself and get back to that point, God, and Jesus he doesn't, disparage us, and doesn't, get angry at us. He's always patient and waits upon us to realize that, hey, you've been walking by yourself for a bit. Maybe it's time to come back and walk with me. And what's really interesting is the I am the door passage that I was shared the message on, is one in which, like, the analogy that he gives there is so amazing, because he calls himself the door. And so if you picture the sheepfold as a rectangular with one opening, and this opening doesn't have a door, the shepherd himself is the door. So he's lying there watching over the sheep, and the sheep hear his voice and they know who he is. The shepherd knows what's best for the sheep, and because all the sheep do is really graze and, watch over their young or whatever it is that sheep do, the shepherd is always looking out for danger. He's always looking for places for his sheep to graze. He's watching out for their very life and their very existence, right? The analogy is an amazing one because, Jesus stands as the shepherd and he's overlooking, he can see dangers coming that the sheep cannot, right? Because he's taller than the sheep, because he knows what to look out for, and he knows how to fend off the wolves. The sheep don't know how to do that themselves. They can't do that themselves, right? So they have to rely on the shepherd for sustenance, for their safety, and so in our walks with God, in our walks through life, we must depend on God as well. We must depend on him, and because he sees what is available. He knows the danger that is ahead. He knows our history. He knows what the dangers that we didn't even give him credit for, the dangers that we didn't even show gratitude for, that he helped us avoid early on in life. We depend on him, and that's why in that verse, in that scripture, he says that he has abundance for us, right? Gives us life and life to the full, and there's a lot of beauty in that. And so, this is something that we all should walk away with, right? It's crazy, even in these pauses in the podcast, I think in my head is almost like go down these rabbit holes of like, wow, you took a pause there. People are going to see that. It's going to terrible podcast, whatever. And that resistance that you feel with that is so. It's amazing how quickly we go to judge ourselves, and yet you probably think nothing of it. But yeah, just trusting in him has been something that I'm learning, and this is something that I want to give to you as well, a lesson to give to you as well, of like trusting in God is an everyday exercise. If you find yourself walking and all of a sudden, man, these are not the results that I want in my life, you really got to ask yourself, where has God been in that journey for you? Have you been walking in step with him? How much of it have you given up to him? And really, are you inviting him? Are you inviting him into that relationship? Because even though I have a relationship with him, because if I choose to neglect that relationship, or if I choose to ignore that voice, it's no wonder I would get the results that I get, right? It would not be the abundance that he promises us, because there is a repercussion to trying to do things ourselves, and God is all loving, and he does not push against our free will. So even though we've made a decision to accept him into our hearts and to have a relationship with him, he still won't force himself on you and force you to live the life as he sees it. He will still give you that free will and allow you to choose, and then also give you the grace and the mercy to come out the other side of it, and to allow you to learn that way. That's a good shepherd, right? He would allow you to get lost 99 times, and all 99 times he's going to come to find you, come look for you, and leave behind the others to come find you and seek you out. And the beauty of that passage is that, something so good is not meant for us to keep to ourselves. We need to bring more people into the fold, more people to understand what the love of God is about. And the sad thing is, a lot of sheep have been hurt in the past, and it's very easy to blame the shepherd for that. But in reality, it's either of our own doing, or other sheep that are not in the fold as well, that have done this. And so, take this as an encouragement. I'm in that process of learning. It's still a very personal and intimate relationship for me of a daily picking up of my cross and walking in step with that. Very much looking forward to this summer. A lot of things happening. We got our Father's Retreat coming up in August. A couple of fathers are going to be coming out this way, and it's going to be an amazing time of really just, like I say, dadding it up. And what I mean by dadding it up is we don't have any structure to our retreat. It's really coming and enjoying time with one another. Like one of the dads, my dad, one of my dads in the group, his name is Nate. When we arrived in Orlando for last year's retreat in June, I was all nervous about the whole the result, and I was attached, right, like I normally am. And and he gave a wonderful remark of, bro, like the fact that we're already doing this is a success. Like the fact that we're sitting in this car right now with one another is a success. Everything else from here on out is the bonus. It's the cherry on top. And so consider it already a success. And so whatever happens, happens. And it turns out like that trip was just absolutely amazing. It was just a fantastic time together. It was good communion together. It was good fellowship together, and just friendship and getting to know each other on a deeper level. The trip was a success, and it's really just, a thing of the eye of the beholder. And so I'm looking forward to that again this year, and making plans to do that the same, bigger, with a bigger group and a lot more, moving parts, but another step in the evolution of Noble Father. And I've gotten so much support. And so if you're listening to this, and I just want to say how much I appreciate your support for this podcast, for this work, and for the dads in the community. I greatly appreciate all the support that I'm getting. Tonight is the Game 7 for my hockey team, Vancouver Canucks and Edmonton Oilers. We just received news that Brock Besser is going to be out. He has had blood clotting issues in his leg. And so we're losing another star player. And so, if we didn't have anything to lose after losing our starting goaltender, we definitely have nothing to lose now with our star forward not being in the game. And so, not all hope is lost. I'm still hopeful. I think that we have the depth to account for that. And it's also amazing whenever you have an opening, a vacancy all of a sudden, in that it gives the opportunity for others to shine. Just like us losing our star goaltender, it has allowed a backup goaltender, a third string goalie, to step into that role, and he's hit a home run. He's been hitting grand slams for us, and so with Brock Besser out, another opportunity for another player to come in and really step their game up. Present an opportunity to pinch hit hard, and I know I'm using all these baseball analogies, but I'm sure you understand what I mean. And so potentially this may be the last time we see this, this facial hair that I've been trying to grow out. I guess you could call it a bit of a playoff beard. But excited for the game tonight. It'll be one for the ages as well. The last time we had a Game 7 in Vancouver, we had a riot afterwards. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. Definitely not excited. It's probably going to be some unruly fans that get upset. But, we really have nothing to lose. We really don't. We should really be taking that attitude of, hey, like, we got to the playoffs. That's a big deal. For us to even make it to the second round, that's a big deal. To take Edmonton Oilers, which is a pretty, they have two of the best players in the entire world on their team, to take them to Game 7 is a major achievement, and it's something worthy of celebration. And it's amazing how much that ties into what I've talked about on this podcast of, we've come this far. Everything from here on out is the cherry on top. And maybe take that attitude into everything that you're facing in life. Is, I don't know where you're at. I don't know what you're going through, but look at it from the perspective of success. You've gotten this far. You've come this far. You woke up today. You got to breathe. Everything else is on top. Everything else is a cherry on top. And celebrate that, is that there is a lot of things to be grateful for, a lot of things to show gratitude for. Don't lose sight of that and live from that place, because that's when you live from that place, it is absolutely amazing and phenomenal. And so I want to say thank you for joining for this podcast again. I'm going to keep it short again. I definitely appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Until next time, remember that we are not promised tomorrow, so be present and stay noble. Bye for now.